President Trump is reportedly concerned about the behavior of his personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani. Politico reports that the president was, quote, apoplectic with Giuliani after he said in a pair of interviews that the president was in talks to build a Trump Tower Moscow through the 2016 election. Those statements, which Giuliani has since backtracked, directly contradict what the president has said publicly. It was the latest in a series of shifting statements from Giuliani. Here's a sample of some of his recent comments on collusion.
This is rigged. I mean, you've got 13 Democrats. You've got a focus on things that didn't happen. No Russia collusion, no obstruction, just defending yourself. No collusion with the Russians. He believes that if he gets the chance to explain it, people will understand no collusion with the Russians, no obstruction of justice. Yeah, sure, there was contact, as there was in that meeting, but that meeting led to nothing. This led to nothing. So if anything, it's proof there was no collusion.
Collusion is not a crime. Everything that's been released so far shows the president to be absolutely innocent. He didn't do anything wrong.
They're not going to be colluding about Russians, which I'm not even know if that's a crime, colluding about Russians. I never said there was no collusion between the campaign or between people in the campaign.
Yes,
I have no idea if I have not. I said the President of the United States. There is not a single bit of evidence the President of the United States committed the only crime you could commit here, conspired with the Russians to hack the DNC.
Joining me now, Politico senior White House reporter Darren Samuelsohn, who's reporting as we just cited and mentioned. Hey, Darren, so, you report that it's not just the president who's unhappy with Rudy Giuliani. Do you think Giuliani survives?
Do I think Rudy Giuliani survives in the White House? As Trump's personal lawyer?
Yep.
Hard to say. At this point in time, I think a lot depends on if the Trump team gets any sort of a signal on when the Mueller probe is going to be over. If it's going to be over soon, like we maybe have given, we've gotten some hints that that is possible, I don't think that they would try and take Rudy Giuliani out at this stage of the game. If this thing lasts for more months, goes into, to the later part of this year, I think you could see a change in the leadership of the Trump legal team. And I say leadership, Rudy's really more of the legal spokesman. He's not doing a lot of the heaviest lifting that's handled by two lawyers down in South Florida, the Raskins, former federal prosecutors, and Jay Sekulow is obviously handling a lot. Rudy's more of the person that you've been seeing on TV, talking to reporters on the telephone, trying to get the message out and trying to defend the president, which, to argue the other side of this, President Trump does typically like Rudy out there being the attack dog against Robert Mueller, against the congressional Democrats that are going to be coming after him. So there is definitely this difficult decision that would need to be made. The president has had some trouble finding other lawyers willing to do this. Rudy Giuliani's doing it for free, I'll also add. So if you're firing him, it's not really like you're technically firing him because he's not going away. He's still going to appear on television. He'd still be talking to reporters as a former Trump lawyer with a lot of the same gravitas. He just might not be, carrying that same title per se.
Meanwhile, the president's former campaign chairman, Paul Manafort, is being ordered into court tomorrow to address charges that he actually lied to the special counsel and also to the grand jury. Just a few hours ago, you reported that the judge will allow Manafort to wear his suit instead of his prison outfit. What else do we know?
Well, that's interesting. I mean, in Alexandria, Virginia, the other case where Paul Manafort has been is also facing a sentence coming up. The judge there said, no, you actually have to come into court wearing your prison outfit. So this was a little bit of a victory for him that he gets to at least come in a civilian outfit instead of his prison garb tomorrow. It's a big moment for Paul Manafort. We'll be interested to hear what he has to say. We haven't seen him in court, I think, since a couple of months back when he was wheeled in a wheelchair, and his lawyers have since confirmed that he has gout. So it will be very interesting. He's been living in solitary confinement since last summer. He is accused of lying to Robert Mueller's prosecutors during the cooperation that he's done, a dozen meetings with the Mueller prosecutors, as well as 2 visits before the grand jury. This is a question of whether, in the lying process, does that make Paul Manafort's prison sentence even that much longer? Will Robert Mueller amp things up even more? And that's a decision that Judge Amy Berman Jackson, a federal judge in Washington, D.C., will give us a little bit of a hint at tomorrow. The sentencing actually for Paul Manafort in this case is not scheduled until March. He does also face sentencing, though, I should add, in February in that other case in Virginia.
Yeah, that's a good point. Before you go, I want to ask you, there's yet another piece that you have up on Politico about the rare comments from the special counsel's office that we got last week. We don't hear much from them. Walk us through this latest. Where are we on this at this point?
Sure, it's a slippery slope what Robert Mueller did on Friday. He denied key parts of that BuzzFeed story that really rocked President Trump's world and got Democrats on Capitol Hill talking about impeachment when that was published on Thursday night. That story suggested that President Trump actually told Michael Cohen to lie in the grand jury testimony, in the congressional testimony that he gave. The special counsel later said that there were parts of that story that weren't true, but they didn't really put their finger on exactly what was incorrect. And BuzzFeed is standing by that story. But the simple fact that Robert Mueller spoke up and put out a statement like he did on Friday night, that's the first time that he's done that, taking issue specifically with a media story where there's an inaccuracy that they're claiming. They do speak on occasion on a couple of other things, but they've never really gone after a press report on an inaccuracy. And why that's a slippery slope is a lot of reporters go to them time after time with their stories, and they lay out the facts, they lay out the details, and the almost always response that you get from Peter Carr, the spokesman for Robert Mueller, is thanks but no comment. So the fact that they actually went out and said something suggests that there was something wrong in the story, and it does raise the question going forward, if there's other reporters who do come to Robert Mueller and offer information, say, look, this is what we're going to publish, and Mueller, again, no comments, that would revert to the old standard. But if they do start to point out flaws or inconsistencies, you start to get into this really tricky game for reporters of, knowing whether you're getting a signal or not getting a signal from the special counsel. Odds are they're going to continue to no comment, but, if stuff like this does flare up that's really high profile, that challenges the integrity of Robert Mueller's investigation, that's where the test will be for Robert Mueller if he does want to continue to talk about these things.
I'm just ready for the made-for-TV movie. At this point,
it's going to be great.
We want to hear everything. We just want to know everything they have and why they chose to make that statement as they did. One of many things we'd all like to find out. I want to thank you very much, Politico senior White House reporter Darren Samuelsohn. Thank you, my friend, for joining us.
Thank you.